Welcome then to heaventoearth.com. My name is Gunnar. We're very fortunate to be joined by a very special guest, Linda Moulton Howe. She's an investigative journalist for over 40 years and also an Emmy Award-winning documentary maker for A Strange Harvest. Good morning, good afternoon. How are you, Linda? It's great to speak to you. Linda, you worked at Stanford, is this correct?
I did my master's degree work at Stanford, and in 1968 I have a master's degree in communication where I made documentary films for 2 years.
Right.
And the first was with the Stanford Medical Center, and it was on a project that went on for 19 years after I left using my documentary film. The second one was my master's thesis. It was called A Picture Calculus, and it seems so amazing now. We're in 2017. That was 1967 to 68. That is when Stanford and a lot of other places for the first time were trying to get computers to analyze bombardments in the linear accelerator. It was that beginning. And when you think how far we've come, how things have evolved, it certainly applies to my life after graduating from Stanford. I married a classmate. We went to Los Angeles. We were both TV producers, had a child. My husband wanted to go to Harvard. We moved to Boston. I was hired to be their medical and science producer of a series of shows. That's where I got the Peabody for science and medical production. And then we went to Denver, and that's where I was hired to be director of special projects at the CBS station. And I had been doing for 2 years live studio programs, documentaries, news segments as a producer, writer, director, editor, reporter in the station when it was the summer of 1979, and I was working on another production with another crew. And my audio guy had just come off of a shoot for 2020 in New York. And he said, the strangest thing is happening to cows in this country. And this was brand new, 2020. And he said, and we just came off of a shoot, Linda, and you know how you really keep after me to keep the battery packs powered. Now back then, it's hard to believe. If we didn't have a crew that kept battery packs that they wore around their bodies powered, and the cameraman and the audio guy had to work together like an umbilical cord because the sound then was in a crystal nugget and the cables hooked into the camera. So these two guys had to stay together and they had to wear these battery belts, and if you didn't have enough charged battery belts, your entire shoot could be ruined, right? This was critical. So he's saying, you know how you really stay on me about keeping the battery belts powered? He said, we're an ABC network out of New York. We're driving out to where there's dead cows, no blood, no tracks, these weird excisions. And Linda, every single time we walked up to one of these cows, and we went to turn on the camera, there was no charge. And he said, you know me. I've charged those batteries.
I've had a similar experience.
Exactly, I have too. So he said, we became spooked by what was happening on this shoot. And so he's telling me. So I called ABC Network in New York. I'm director of the CBS Special Projects Unit in Denver, and asked to talk with the EP, the executive producer, on this new series, and had this fascinating discussion. And when I said to him, well, what happened to your footage? My cameraman and audio guy were talking, and they said that you shot over 100,000 feet of, then it was double system. Nobody shot over 100,000. It was too expensive. So on this animal mutilation story, they had shot over 100,000 feet. And he said, oh, we trashed it because we're now in the business of news and we never could get an answer. That was what energized me.
It's had the red rag.
To want to get to the bottom and get an answer. So from that point going forward, the fall of 79 to the spring of 80 was 9 months, 18 hours a day work. And I will never forget the first day that I went to interview a Sheriff Tex Graves in northern Colorado. He had been investigating animal mutilations from 1973 till his retirement in the fall of 79. But he had been sheriff for 23 years. But he, probably as much as anybody in law enforcement, had investigated animal mutilations. And he had 266 colored Polaroids that he had taken from the sheriff's office because he had taken the photos and he wanted me to see them. And I laid them out chronologically. I was seeing most disturbing things. No blood, no tracks, a head on a steer that went down into a hole. And when I asked the sheriff how deep in the hole, he said, we measured it, it was 8 inches. So imagine you've got an animal on its right side. The legs are together in the back and the front. The head is in a hole, 8 inches. It's powder like this, just like this. And there is not a single track anywhere around the body of this deer with its head in the hole. Not even his, if he didn't walk there, where did he come from? Well, here is, and the sheriff said, Linda, we walked around, we took photographs first, because we couldn't understand what are we looking at. And he said, when we finally got up to the hole and we're measuring, the deputy looked at me and I looked at him, and we both said at the same time, something had the power to paralyze this steer, take ear, eye, tongue, jaw, genitals, and rectum tissue out of this animal with no blood whatsoever, but left the head unparalyzed. And the sheriff said, we concluded that in the agony, it had to have been feeling what was happening, even though it could not move. And at that point, when my mind went to the concept, if there could be something that could paralyze a large domestic animal, have the entire body except the head totally still, that the cruelty, the implied cruelty of what I was looking at is exactly what he and I talked about. And at that moment, Sheriff Tex Graves, he leaned into me and he said, Linda, I'll save you some time. The perpetrators are creatures from outer space.
Wow. That's a bold decision.
At that point, it was like a 220 volt circuit went through me because I was not prepared for that. But what I'm looking at was so troubling and upsetting. Now, go through the years. I have literally walked in 2 hemispheres with formalin and scalpels and containers to get tissue from mutilator cuts back to pathologists. And when you start getting forensic evidence, the hemoglobin is cooked, the collagen is cooked, that even the capillaries coming up to the skin, that the capillaries are completely empty of hemoglobin. That's not something we can do. And that you then, your mind starts moving. If they're taking the same tissues, if they are being able to control down to capillary blood, that we are dealing with technology we don't have. And that's where my work began laying out what sheriffs, what deputies, what pathologists. And when I did A Strange Harvest, it was a 90-minute special for the CBS station at night. It was like a bomb.
Not bad, yeah.
And the ratings were the highest that they have ever been at the station since. It was a 19 rating and a 37 share in Arbitron at Nielsen. It meant that our audience was going out into the states around us. And then they started dragging these gray big bags of mail to my office. And remember, there's no computers. Your audience needs to understand that in 1979 to 1980, the only communication methods, a landline phone and typing or writing mail. And when you start getting huge mail bags coming in full, and you are letter after letter after letter, and they came from around the world. Wow. Word spread. I have never told anyone this before. So all these letters, and people said illustrations, photos. I had just scratched the tip of the iceberg with A Strange Harvest. It did receive a regional Emmy. I received Emmys in other of my work, and I stayed at that station for approximately 7 years. But after A Strange Harvest was broadcast, had this huge audience, received Emmy and some other awards, I got a call from the director of documentary productions at Home Box Office in New York. Said they wanted to screen A Strange Harvest, and that led to them contracting with me to do an hour for HBO. And on March 21st, in 1983, I was in New York signing a contract, and that night I had dinner with a man named Peter Gersten. He was the attorney in the United States who filed the first Freedom of Information Act request to the CIA, NRO, DIA, all of the alphabet soup, all of the military. He went to everybody because it was the new Freedom of Information Act law. And as an attorney in New York, he was, on behalf of Citizens Against UFO Secrecy, requesting all documents related to UFOs, ETs, all of the acronyms. Here's what happened. The CIA would send Gerson, the attorney, a letter that would say, I've seen these letters. The Central Intelligence Agency has no files on UFOs and ETs, but we know that the National Security Agency has 112.
They've just passed it over.
And then he'd get a letter from the National Security Agency saying, we don't have any UFO files, but we know the CIA. Oh, you should see these.
Oh, dear.
So being a smart attorney, he had his case in front of him.
Yeah,
he took this all the way to the Supreme Court. And the agencies nailing other agencies was his leverage with the court. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court in an in-camera session. They released, several of the intelligence agencies released documents, but those are the ones that were all blacked out that you've seen.
Yes, the
whole pages blacked out. Peter Gersten and Patrick Quage, which was a friend and also a UFO researcher. We met after I had signed the contract at HBO, and he showed me letters from an Air Force Office of Special Investigations agent working at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque that was talking about the exchange of something like laser fire in 1978 at Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota. Immense detail. Security guard sees a silver disc come down on military property. The security guard pulls his gun and starts walking. A door opens on the disc. A blonde, not a gray, a blonde humanoid comes out. The security guard raises his gun, and there, whatever this instrument is, was I think it was green. It was a light, like a laser. Completely evaporates the gun in the security guard's hand, and the security guard only has surface weapons.
Yeah, like what burns.
And what I understood next, that is a technology that the United States wanted.
Of course.
So now, in this box office begins what I call the long road of my investigations into an alien presence on this planet with these kinds of technologies. Because I started on that HBO project with a meeting at Kirtland Air Force Base. Peter Gersten and I were going to work together on the Ellsworth laser problem. And this is where, in a way, I think of the paradigm shift in my own life. I'm sitting in this Air Force office of special investigation, and the guy says, my superior officers have asked me to show you a document. He reaches over in his left hand, he pulls this drawer, pulls out a manila envelope, 8.5 by 11. He says, you can read this, you cannot take notes, and I want you to move from the chair you're sitting in to that chair. And he's pointing at a chair that is essentially in the middle of a huge office with nothing around it. I was so innocent and naive that it didn't occur to me that at that moment I'm being videotaped, which I was. So I'm looking at the several pages that he's handed, and it has all caps briefing paper for the President of the United States of America on the subject of unidentified aerial craft, IACs. And when I went to the first page, it started going back to Project Grudge and Sign and all of these things to the government. And then it got to a paragraph that said, these extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA in already evolving primates to create Homo sapien, and the Latin was that. And another page, it had Project Garnet, all caps, all questions and mysteries about the evolution of Homo sapien on this planet have been answered in this project.
Wow, powerful document.
Well, this was the 90-degree turn in my life.
Yeah.
Because
can imagine.
I had been dealing with why would something be harvesting genetic material from all of these animals. So that's what I had concluded is a genetic harvest. I called my film Strange Harvest. Now I'm reading an alleged document for a president of the United States that is boldly saying more than once that we then are biological androids. We are the product of DNA manipulation by an alien presence. And I wanted to know why, who, how, and where is the alien intelligence from? Those are the questions that have driven and energized my life since 1983 to this day. Nothing has changed outside of the fact that the landscape that I have walked now seems so huge, and that it is a testimony to the complexity of the phenomenon. That you start off with maybe 3 or 4 issues that you're investigating, and today, this is no kidding. I get an average of 400 emails every single 24-hour day cycle. I run down these 400 through the day. Once upon a time, Miss Howe, may I call you? They were simple. Now I get in the subject line, abducted, need to talk with you about type, or doctor has confirmed an implant in my pituitary gland. And I'm not kidding, that the communication from the public since I first began in total ignorance on A Strange Harvest has gone so far. People are communicating about so many complex aspects, and that you begin to be humbled by the idea that whatever we are in, whatever cosmic, you could say theater, computer simulation, whatever we're in, it is like a 16-layer chess game. And then
It's like Star Trek, the chest came from that.
And the other part that I have learned, that was another big paradigm shift from a man who retired from the Defense Intelligence Agency in 1999. And in a 7-hour meeting with him at the wharf in Baltimore in December of 1999 was the first time that I had somebody lay out for me the concept that this is our government. One of our greatest concerns is who walks on the surface of this planet, looks human and is not. Said we use technology aimed at humans to determine what's an image. Then goes into a long discussion about geopolitical territorial conflicts on Earth for millions of years. That wands want to annihilate reptiles, reptiles want to annihilate wands. There are these ebens that are grays.
The races of 5, is it?
Well, 3 is who he concentrated on. And suddenly, for the first time in my life, I was hit with, oh my God, that a Homo sapiens sapien looking being does not necessarily have to be inhabited by a Homo sapiens sapien. It could be the camouflage. Human bodies are being used as camouflage in an alien conflict, alien competition. That was December 1999. Today, as you and I speak, in May of 2017. Corey Good, David Wilcock, William Mills Tompkins, they have pulled this story even further, that there is ancient archaeology of bodies and artifacts on Mars. John Brandenburg, a nuclear physicist, did a presentation for NASA this past fall. They asked him to do this presentation. That in the northern hemisphere at the Cydonia region is evidence of what he calls 2 hydrogen bombs were let off in the air in order to completely annihilate surface structures, of which the Cydonia face is
You've seen the CIA documents that were recently released as well that relate directly to that, don't they?
Hydrogen bombs. Exactly who was fighting, how long ago, leaving impacts of trinitite in the northern hemisphere of Mars. And then you come to Earth, and they are talking about 2 miles down in Lake Vostok, the same kind of archaeology that's on Mars is on our own planet. And if it's 2 miles under the ice, go to scientists who study our poles and say, when is the last time that there was no ice on Antarctica? And you will not get a definite answer, you'll get a consensus of around 13 million years ago. Yeah, and if we are right now trying to keep the world from knowing that there has been an archaeological investigation for 15 years by the United States government, and that they're actually taking artifacts out that they don't want the world to know, it's enraging. We as a human population deserve more than anything to know about anything 30 million years ago or 5 million years ago or a million years ago. Yeah, and now, the third, Antarctica, Mars, the same description of archaeology, backside of the moon, independent of Corey, William Mills Tompkins, and others. I have 2 whistleblowers. And they are describing to me photographs of archaeology on the backside of the moon that have hieroglyphs that would fit into Mesopotamia.
Really? So I guess our ancient origins, where we believe civilization, the cradle civilization, was born from.
Well, the Anunnaki must be the prime intelligence that's been at war with something else on Mars, that was the constructor of ziggurats in stone and the huge terraforming operations of the planet. And if the Anunnaki are extraterrestrials from another star system, which at least some of the translations are, gotta make sure I gotta go, that the translations that would say they came from Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2. If Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 are the home binary system for the Anunnaki, the first famous worldwide abduction case is Betty and Barney Hill,
and that's the star map.
1961, New Hampshire. The star map that led to the discovery of Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 being the source. So between 2017 1979, when I got into animal mutilations, and then you think of Betty and Barney Hill, that over that span of time we've gone from could there be any ETs mutilating animals, abducting humans, to alien archaeology, bodies, architecture, and hieroglyphics, and who knows, all on Mars, Antarctica, and the backside of the moon. And this is now a serious, big deal.
Absolutely.
And what I'm waiting for is the Congressional Investigation, in which the head of the NSA, the CIA, the DIA, the NRO, and all of them are seated in front of people who say, how did you make decisions that would concoct this plan, that you would erase, that you would take, that you would deny people knowing about archaeology that would go back maybe to 13 million years, and Homo sapiens sapien, a standing up primate, did not occur until 2 million years ago. The world deserves this information. What could possibly be the reason to deny the truth to the planet? And that's why I do what I do. That's why I have been doing it since 1979 on this story, and that I am grateful that there is something like Contact and some of the other conferences that bring us all together to talk now more honestly than anybody has ever talked about subjects that once upon a time seemed like science fiction.
Absolutely.
And this year, this is the breakthrough. This is where the public is leaving the government behind.
Yes.
It's happening everywhere.
Do you believe then that this was your
I
role?
do have to go.
You do. We've
I
got
have
just
to
a
get
minute
my
left.
equipment set up.
Do you believe that this was your role? Last question. Do you believe that you were destined to do this in order to bring about this kind of new paradigm, to unite people, to bring out this evidence, using your scientific background, using your, I guess, your journalistic background?
2 weeks into the investigation, with a husband, a child, cat, dog, beautiful house, gardens, I got up one morning and I said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I was boss of this department. And I remember I suddenly felt a kind of euphoria. I don't have to do this. And I got dressed and I got in the car and I went to the office and I was just happier than I had been for a long time. And my office was up on the 3rd floor of the CBS station in Denver. And I can still see. I put the key in the lock on my office door. And on the other side, I heard a phone ring. 3 hours later, 2 or 3 conversations on the phone. And I was more committed to get to the bottom of the animal mutilations than I had been 2 weeks earlier.
Wow.
Every single time that I tried to leave animal mutilations or aliens at various points where it got too hard, the government plays very hardball. Something, I just feel like something went
Back into the mold, yeah.
Exactly. So in a way, I think it is those events that occurred that answers your question.
Linda, an absolute tour de force of your last 40 years worth of research. It's so important what it is that you do, and I'm so grateful that you chose to speak to us. Thank you very much. We will let you go because I know you're so busy as well.
I have to do a workshop.
You do, you've got to do a workshop. People need to know the information, they need to know it.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.